Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can see and hear me. If anyone who is there can just let me know in the little chat that you've got me, that would be fantastic. We're on a little bit of a delay here, so I just want to make sure you guys can see and hear me before I start in on what we're talking about today. And I'm also just, while I'm waiting for that, I'm just going to check and see if there were any questions or comments or anything anyone wanted me to touch on when I posted on Twitter and Instagram and stuff earlier. Okay, well, hopefully you guys can all hear me. Again, just checking my socials real quick just to see if there are any questions or anything like that I want to make sure that I get to. But just so everyone is on the same page, basically today we're just going to talk about the last 3 episodes of The Vow from HBO. And I posted on my Instagram that it was 4, 5, and 7. Obviously, it's 4, 5, and 6. So disregard that. It's been a long week already. So things are crazy. All right, doesn't really look like anyone posted on socials about any questions, so I'll just start in and I'll talk about, like I mentioned, these episodes that have come out since the last time that I kind of did one of these, so that's the last 3 episodes. And then also what's going on right now, which is actually kind of exciting because they are having the sentencing for Clare Bronfman tomorrow in Brooklyn, and it's actually, I think, one of the first court hearings that has to do with this case that is actually being held in person with no virtual option. So I think it's the first one I've seen that has gone that way, kind of since all of COVID started. So that's kind of interesting. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And of course, if you guys have any questions along the way or want me to stop and talk about, a certain part a little bit more, just pop it in the live chat here. I'll be taking a look at that kind of as we go along. And, the whole point that I do this is that we can have like an interactive conversation and I can answer your questions and whatnot. So don't hold back. Ask me, whatever you want. I'll do my best to answer. But again, we'll just hop in with episode 4 of The Vow, which was not this past weekend, not the weekend before, but the weekend before that. If you guys can kind of wrap your head around that time frame. So basically, this is kind of when Catherine Oxenberg gets introduced to the whole story. And if you don't know who Catherine is, she's got a really interesting background, and the episode kind of touches on it a little bit. But she's actually from a royal line. She's from a royal family. She's somehow, I think, actually related to the royals. In London, so that's really interesting. But she also gained a lot of fame in Hollywood because she was in the original Dynasty. So that kind of gives you another insight as to the kind of people that NXIVM kind of preyed on and tried to get into their group. And I made this mistake the last time, but I actually have her book and it's fantastic. It's actually right over here. I'm gonna go grab it real quick, so don't go away. Okay, I told you it was literally across the room, so I went and I grabbed it. Anyway, this is Catherine's book. It's called Captive, and it's all about the things that she did to help get her daughter out of NXIVM. So if you are interested in that part of the story after watching episode 4, I highly suggest going and picking up one of Catherine's books. I think I bought mine at Barnes & Noble. So actually, the book, I was checking because I couldn't remember, but the book actually ends when India is still in NXIVM. And since then, Catherine has actually been able to get her out of it. So that is really awesome. But this whole this whole book is just a really, like, I think a love letter, basically, from Catherine to India about, being a mother and this mother-daughter bond and kind of, like, the unwavering love that's there. So, an incredible read. If you're really into this, you haven't read it, pick it up, Barnes & Noble. Pretty sure they have it. Order it on Amazon. Catherine is fantastic. Like, how you see her in this episode is exactly how she is in real life. And she is just like the sweetest person, and really her only goal over several years was to get India out of this, because I don't know, I don't think they went into it in this episode, and I'm not sure if they'll go into it later, but actually what had happened was Catherine brought India to one of these groups, and it was kind of like a gift and a thing that they were like going to go to together. And then Catherine kind of was like, this is kind of like BS, like I'm not gonna stick around for this thing. Like, they've got alternative motives, but India really kind of latched onto it and enjoyed it, so she stayed. So that's kind of how all of that started. So that's a little bit of background from episode 4. But one of the things I thought was really interesting about that episode was that they actually had another woman who they called Jane, someone whose identity that, they didn't reveal or anything like that. And she talked about a lot of the things that you hear other people who have kind of been involved in this talk about. Chris, you've read Captive by Catherine? It's so good, isn't it? I love, like, her perspective and just the way she writes about it. There are a bunch of really good books. If you want to get a really good backstory on how this all got created, you have to pick up The Program by Tony Natali. If you haven't read that one yet, highly suggest it. Okay, so episode 5. Let's see. I'm just reading the synopsis to jog my memory a little bit because I didn't take very good notes during these, and by not very good notes, I didn't take any. So this is kind of where Catherine and Mark and Sarah and Bonnie kind of start to get the press involved in this. They go to the New York Times and they kind of, figure out how to get their attention when it comes to telling this story, because they've kind of figured out that whatever they're doing isn't working. They're not reaching the people inside NXIVM who, like, they're trying to get out just by doing whatever it is that they're doing right now. So they decided, we're going to go to the press. And that was kind of like, I really understood from, like, Sarah's interviews in this that, her whole goal wasn't to be, like, the face of this or anything. Like, her goal was, I brought, like, this, like, certain number of people into this group, and so, like, it's my responsibility to do everything I can to get them out. So that's really, I think, what episode 5 centered around. And, just really throughout all of these episodes, I find it so interesting, all of the footage that HBO has been able to get their hands on from, like, the volleyball games, and just, like, really, like, Keith just being, like, really candid, I guess, like, how you would see him in his everyday life. So I think, like, even just being able to see that in these episodes is really, like, eye-opening to, kind of what this is all about. The end of episode 5, we actually get introduced to another character, Barbara Boucher, who I've interviewed a couple of times outside of court in Brooklyn. And she was part of, this original group that left NXIVM, called the NXIVM 9, is kind of like what they're dubbed. So then by the time we get to episode 6, that kind of brings in Barbara a little bit, and she gives, like, a little bit of that background about, like, how the company was built, and, like, how they kind of how the first, like, I'll call them, like, the harem of women around Keith was, like, kind of created. So she's got, like, some really great insight to that, and again, just, like, a ton of crazy behind the scenes footage that is just, like, really bizarre. Like, there's this whole montage of, like, I think it is like Nancy Salzman's birthday party or something, and they're all in this, like, big ballroom in Albany, but, like, some of them have, like, these crazy costumes on and stuff, and it's just, like, really, really bizarre and strange to see that type of footage. So let's see. Oh, so in episode 6, like, okay, so the New York Times article gets published and they are kind of um, using the Me Too movement to kind of like forward this. So the Harvey Weinstein stuff came out, and then the New York Times put, this story, and you see Sarah say, like, oh my God, I'm on the front page of the New York Times. So it comes out, and one of the really striking scenes in this episode, I think, is when Sarah is sitting there on her computer and reading all of the comments of people saying, like, really terrible things about, like, why would these women stay and, like, all of this stuff. And I think that really points to, like, I think, like, the missing link in all of this when, people just read the sensationalized headline and they just read about the branding and all of that stuff, but they don't realize that, this was really, like, a brainwashing group where, like, they convinced these people to do these things, and it wasn't like, okay, on Monday I'm gonna join NXIVM, and on Tuesday I'm gonna get this brand. Like, they were in it for years and years and years, and, like, conditioned to think these things and believe these people and kind of, like, be part of this group. So it's not like an overnight thing. I just want to make sure people understand that. Oh, hi Daniel, glad you're here again. I know those costumes are so bizarre, right? I think it was Pam K. Fritz was wearing that weird, like, cleavage, like, plastic thing. And then the other woman had, like, that see-through skirt, and she was, like, over the light. And there was one more, I thought. I can't remember, though. But they were really, really strange. That scene is really bizarre. And I feel like the inside, like, that party, like, must be what Keith Raniere's brain looks like. Sometimes. But anyway, so in episode 6, that was, like, the really striking thing for me was just Sarah reading those comments, and kind of, like, all of that prompted them to start contacting, like, some local news outlets in Albany, including the Times Union newspaper, which, if you live in the Capital Region at all, you know that is, the go-to newspaper kind of in the area. So, I'm sorry, that yawn came out of nowhere. So anyway, they kind of go into that, and Barbara Boucher kind of, gives the background on kind of, where she stood and stuff. And there's a really, so Barbara brings in, or she doesn't bring her in, Barbara's story brings into the documentary Susan Dones, who was the head of the Tacoma Center. And I actually interviewed Susan in one of the very first in-depth pieces I did on NXIVM when I first started all of this reporting. And I interviewed her via Skype, and there's that kind of part where they're all sitting in a circle around Keith, and they're telling him, we're going to leave. And I think the documentary kind of, I know it's not, like, their main point, so that's probably why they cut this part short, but that wasn't, like, a one-day thing. They went back 3 days and had those types of meetings with Keith, and it was actually Susan's idea to videotape them, and she asked him if she could, and he was like, yeah, sure. And so she still has all those videotapes. Like, she has digitized them since and, like, has them. And there's actually a part where he's talking to them, and he tells them, I've had people killed for my beliefs. And, like, at that point is when Susan was like, what the hell? Like, I definitely need to get out of this. And when these people left, like, they were scared. And it's something Tony Natale told me, in several of our interviews. She was like, when Keith and I broke up, it wasn't a breakup, like, it was a run for your life. And I think that that's, really what people felt when they were trying to leave, or did leave NXIVM as well. I mean, I think you see that in The Vow as well. Bonnie and Mark are talking about going into an address protection program and things like this, and they're like, we're only filming in this location because we're leaving today, and things of that nature. So I think, again, and I know I said this in previous live chats that we've had, but The Vow does a really good job, I think, of capturing the emotion and putting the viewer, like, inside of the emotion of what these people were feeling, in all of these instances. So I think so. I did watch the sneak peek for episode 7, and let me tell you guys, I'm so excited because I saw my girl Tony Natali. It's gonna be the Tony Natali story, and let me tell you, Daniel, if you think Barbara is fierce, you have seen nothing until you see Tony Natali. Tony Natali is like the OG of all of this. She dated Keith back in the 90s. Like, she started Consumers Byline with him, which was like before NXIVM and ESP ever existed. She was like the first of the first. And she has been, I don't want to use like the term guru because I think it has kind of a bad connotation in the context of NXIVM, but she has been like my guiding light throughout all of this reporting, and I'm so thankful to have, connected with her early on, and she calls me her cult buster. So yeah, she's going to be in the next episode, and I can't wait. She's going to be awesome. But I think the next episode is probably going to delve into, like her talking about the history, and then her saying, about how she's been trying to get charges against him, like, for years and years and years. And I think probably this is going to be the part where Catherine ends up going to Albany and talking with the FBI and giving them, what she's gathered so far. So we're getting into more like present day, I guess, or like kind of what like you all have probably seen in reporting. So I think like that's where we're starting to get with the documentary at this point, which is cool. I'll definitely have like a lot more to talk about from my personal perspective once we get into that part, because right now, I'm kind of just like analyzing what happened and like giving my perspective on what other people have told me secondhand. But hopefully we can get into, a little bit more of my like firsthand things. Okay, ready for the exciting part? Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. in Brooklyn, Clare Bronfman is going to be sentenced. Big deal, guys. My girl, Juliana, she works at Channel 10 still, Juliana Bruno. If you guys live in the Capital Region, you probably know who she is, but she is going to be there at the sentencing tomorrow. So she'll have all the details on that, and I'll be watching her Twitter just to see, updates, things like that. I'll retweet her if there's anything, really massive. I will try to give you guys an update on that. But just a reminder, Clare Bronfman, one of the Seagram's heiresses. Gatsby, stop that. He's over there in his bed, like, staring at me. He's mad he can't be part of this one. One of the Seagram's heiresses, basically, like, if not for her and her sister and, like, the social clout they had and the money that they had, I don't think we would ever be hearing about this. Like, this wouldn't have risen to the level that it was and gotten the notoriety that it was, in my opinion, at least. So Clare pleaded guilty to conspiracy to conceal and harbor illegal aliens for financial gain and fraudulent use of identification. So obviously, like, a little bit of a lesser crime than what she was originally charged with. And so I'm just bringing up some of the legal documents here. But basically, the Eastern District's sentencing memorandum, which I talked about before, I'll just read this like first part of the preliminary statement because I think it's pretty profound. For over a decade, the defendant Clare Bronfman used her extraordinary wealth and social status to fund and promote a criminal enterprise led by her co-defendant Keith Raniere. She recruited individuals into NXIVM-affiliated organizations and brought them within Raniere's orbit. There can be little doubt that Raniere would not have been able to commit the crimes with which he was convicted were it not for powerful allies like Bronfman. Bronfman spent millions of dollars of her inherited fortune on Raniere's endeavors. She pursued Raniere's accusers and critics by dispatching powerful teams of lawyers, private investigators, and public relations firms to attempt to discredit them and dredge up information that could be used to undermine their claims. Even now, after Raniere's convictions for sex trafficking, forced labor, alien smuggling, and child exploitation offenses, Bronfman continues to support Raniere. So I think like that kind of sentence, like, or that whatever, speaks for itself. Let's see. Oh, Daniel, the end mentioning Eric Schneiderman. I know, right? Like, it's so bananas to look back and know that, like, know what we know now about him and just like that whole mess. So I don't know if there's like something behind all of that or whatever, but it definitely is like interesting to see him on tape and things like that. Sorry, y'all, my allergies are like acting up like crazy. I don't know why right now. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that's like pretty much all that's going on right now. So we'll definitely have like a lot more information after Clare is sentenced tomorrow. I know that there's going to be some victim impact statements read. I'm not sure if I can actually talk about what I know as far as that goes right now, but I'm just checking my email just to see if I did get anything back regarding that. Doesn't look like it so far, but I did just get an email from the Eastern District Court. Okay, so it looks like, so there will be 2 overflow courtrooms tomorrow, and the proceeding will be live streamed in the cafeteria seating area on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. So they're not putting out like a streaming link like they have for the previous ones, but I guess they are streaming it like in-house, and I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like they're going to let any reporters like inside the actual courtroom where it is happening. It sounds like it's all going to be in overflow and in that cafeteria streaming. So we will see how that goes, I guess. Chris says rolling with 5 years in prison, 4 maybe turned into prohibition. Medical custody prison for Clare. Yeah, I don't know. We will, yeah, there's no phone-in number for this one like before. I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not sure. It seems really bizarre. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I think that this is like one of the first court appearances since COVID started that there is going to be an in-person type of thing like this. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more after going tomorrow. Hopefully that's a question Juliana will ask, and we'll get some answers from that. So I think that, with her sentencing tomorrow, it can give us a lot of insight in what we're going to see out of the other ones. She definitely is like the most influential and like financially powerful of the bunch. So I guess we will see how that goes. So that's pretty much all I have for today. I know this was kind of a short one, but I did want to hop on and just do another one again. And as always, you guys can tweet me, Facebook me, Instagram me, comment on YouTube. You know where to find me. So yeah. All right. I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.